You have to see how I made this Beerus mini bead design with artkalbeads. But before I get to my video, like, comment, and subscribe. Every single one of you helps me push my content out to more and more people. Plus, it gives me more ideas on what I'm gonna make into these awesome perler designs. Okay, now let's see some Beerus. This bead sprite design was almost 13,000 beads. And these are mini beads, so they're significantly harder to use than the normal 5mm beads. So I really needed to take my time when I was making this, as well as the final prepping stages that you're watching now. This was the first bead sprite that I've ever done where I used the tape method on mini beads. Before, I never ended up doing it this way because I didn't think I needed to, but I really wanted to try to get a fully flattened melt like I get with the larger perler beads when I make those. Beerus is chaos incarnate, so I felt like it was a good idea to use my broken carnage mug that I love. This is an important step to do and it's easily overlooked. Now all my fans out there with tryptophobia, please skip this part because there are holes everywhere. 13,000 of them. But I did want to try something new and use a pegboard to get the edges. I'm always kind of curious if it'll actually help me or hurt me in the long run. But because I end up using painter's tape, this is never really an option for me. Painter's tape is just too sticky when it comes to the pegboards themselves. So I end up having to use the tweezers and slowly pry it off, which ends up causing way more time than just poking the holes myself. So I'm back to using the tweezers to poke thousands and thousands of holes. But really it's not that bad to poke all the holes. It is a needed step to get that nice finish that I'm looking for at the end. However, it has been months and months since I've really done a big mini bead design like this one. So I'm definitely a little apprehensive when it comes to ironing these out, because the small mini beads melt so incredibly fast once they actually start melting. The larger 5mm beads are significantly more forgiving when you're making a perler bead design. When you have your parchment paper down and you are ironing, you can't tell with these mini beads if they're actually closed or not because they're so small. So I ended up having to look really close, trying to figure out if I got all of the beads closed or not. The larger midi beads you can easily see through the parchment paper, so it's so easy to tell. And I got almost all of them and it looks really good. As a fun bonus for this order, I wanted to give it something special. And because it was 12 by 12 inches, I thought it would look really good in a frame. But you can't just use any frame when you're gonna make a bead sprite and put it in there, because the bead sprites are thick, they're not thin. So you always have to get a frame that has these little metal latches on there that you have to bend to close it. You can't use any of the ones that turn or rotate. They have to have some give when it comes to the backing. So all of the stuff that comes inside the frame doesn't go in. It ends up just being the perler slapped in like that with the back, and that's it. But thankfully the Beerus mini bead design fit perfectly in there and I didn't have to modify it or anything. I could just close the back and here it is. But it was really hard to get a shot that didn't have a ton of glare on it, so you can see me moving it around here. With Beerus in the frame now, I get to add all the manga panels to it, and I used a little bit of Mod Podge to get the panels to stay on there. As you can tell, I definitely did not use real manga panels for this because I could not bring myself to cut up a manga page. So I looked through the manga myself and I was looking for pictures of Vegeta and Beerus fighting. I know the person that ordered this loves Vegeta as well, and I almost made that character instead of Beerus. All the shots I have of Beerus in here are him talking smack to Vegeta or just bashing him into a tree. It's actually really funny. One of the things I really wanted to make sure didn't happen was to get air bubbles underneath those pages. So that's why you'll see me run my finger over it multiple times to make sure that it's firmly pressed. And on top of that, I wanted the frame to be fully covered with the manga panels, so that way if you're at the side of it, you don't see like the black border. I feel like that would take away from the aesthetic. Now, if I did this again, I think I might pick a larger frame border because there were so many cool things on the manga pages that I really wanted to show, but I couldn't because there just wasn't enough room. But thankfully, all of the panels that I picked were really cool and I was able to kind of center them along the edge there. So I always incorporated the front and the side of the pages. And if you noticed, I ended up switching out one of the pages because the Mod Podge underneath actually soaked through the paper because I put too much down. And that panel kind of got ruined, so I switched it out for a different one. I didn't realize how much I added in, and I had to clean up a lot off the back of the frame like you can see me doing right here. So while I was doing the front of the frame, I was very careful not to add too much. This frame already had somewhat of a polish to it, so when I added the Mod Podge on top, it kind of started to clump together, so I had to quickly put down all of the manga panels. That's why you can kind of see me shimmying them around and trying to line them up perfectly, mainly so that the Mod Podge underneath goes over the entire area and I can kind of line it up perfectly with the edge of the frame. And since this manga panel was one of the last pieces for a corner, I had to trim it down and really try to get it into a spot that looks good and didn't overlap all the other panels, but you could also see its own panel as well. I definitely thought that it was gonna be easier than it really ends up being. This is actually kind of hard to do. Next time, I definitely think I'll end up photoshopping maybe all of them together so I can cut out the entire piece instead of having several different manga panels to cut and glue together and have these sort of Frankenstein corners. Thankfully though, all the panels did mesh really well together once I got the smaller ones fit in. I sort of learned my lesson on the top here and added 3 really big long panels so that it was a lot easier to do. The sides have a bunch of really small panels that were tougher to put together. And that made a cool dynamic of having the up close eyes on the top and bottom and fight scenes on the sides. With the last panel on, I got to finish the frame and oh my gosh, I absolutely love how it turned out. This is definitely one of the coolest art projects that I've ever done. And thank you for watching my video of me making this amazing Beerus design. I'm really happy that I got to share it with everyone and I'll catch you in the next one. Okay, bye!